Yes, Senator Samson CHERARGEI.
Mr. Speaker, to allow the House to proceed, Senator, could you rule that Senator Professor Tom Ojenda and Senator BONY KHALWALE are out of order as per the Standing Order 103? Because these are matters of sub judice, Mr. Speaker. We are aware they are under receivership proceedings that are ongoing in court. And they are bringing alive matters before this House, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I request that you rule out of order both Senator Professor Tom Ojenda and Senator BONY KHALWALE. And by the way,
it's
Mr.
only
Speaker,
Senator BONY KHALWALE who is out of order, not Senator
no,
Professor.
Mr. Speaker, but also Senator Professor Tom Ojenda has brought matters that are under receivership that are being litigated in court. So he's also out of order, Mr. Speaker, as per Standing Order 103.
He was provoked beyond reasonable parameters.
No, but Mr. Speaker, the Standing Order does not say when you are provoked beyond reasonable doubt or beyond emotional limit or beyond reason, you must discuss issues that are alive, Mr. Speaker, before the courts of them. So they should be ruled out of order, both of them, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Andy.
Mr. Speaker, I raise on a point of order number 98, 4, and urge you to request Senator of Kakamega probably to leave the chambers, because you have ruled in a matter twice, and he persistently continues to rise on the same matter and insist to discuss the same matter, even when you have ruled that this matter should be brought as a motion. He still goes ahead and prosecutes on the matter, Mr. Speaker. Is he in order? In fact, it's a very gross violation of not only a point of order, but also disrespect to the chair. So, with point of order number 98-4, may you ask the Senator of Kakamega to leave the chambers? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Senator Oredama.
Mr. Speaker, I'm standing under Standing Order number 1, but I'm very sure there's another standing order I cannot remember. We are discussing a statement that has been brought by the distinguished senator from Kisumu. Earlier on, your brother, the Speaker, gave us directions on what we should do when it comes to debating statements. In fact, if I remember very well, the Speaker directed that when it comes to contributing to statements, we limit our contribution to what we want the committee to carry out and investigate. I'd like to seek your indulgence on this matter so that we can proceed, because earlier on you limited our time for debate to 2 minutes. We are now moving into personal issues. The distinguished senator from Bungoma, Kakamega, clearly stated that this is an emotive matter. So I'd like to beseech you, Mr. Speaker, that we do not tolerate this matter anymore. Can you give us directions on this statement so that we can move forward?
Resume your seat. The 2 statements are referred to the Committee on Agriculture. Senator William Cheptumo.
Mr. Speaker, I think my colleague, Honorable Senator Narok, has said what I wanted to say. Even for Honorable CHERARGEI to allege that Senator Ojenda has spoken about the matter in court, he only said that there is proceedings in court. I think, Mr. Speaker, so that we utilize our time more productively, it is important that you proceed as proposed by my colleagues so that we move to the other issues.
Senator Cheptumo, I gave you on a different matter, not on the sugar issue.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At least I have used Mr. Speaker, the point I wanted to raise is that I wanted to guide my colleagues in the House. My committee, Mr. Speaker, has received a number of statements, and especially on matters on drought and food distribution. Yesterday, Mr. Speaker, here, the Minister for East Africa and ASELS and Regional Development appeared before my committee to answer questions touching on the issue of relief, distribution, and so on. It transpired, Mr. Speaker, in that session that that department now, or special programs, under the Executive Order number 1, is actually now squarely in the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection. So, Mr. Speaker, I just want to make this clear so that as my colleagues continue to raise questions, they should be able to refer to the Executive Order number 1, so that they are able to direct the questions to the relevant departments. Mr. Speaker, in particular now, my brother Otosi, Senator, has raised an issue on the same subject, and it was read, I think, in the morning. But I felt it was good for me, as a responsible chair, to assist my colleagues so that in future, they raise questions on relief distribution to Minister of Labor and Social Protection. That will save members' time, Mr. Speaker, rather than them directing to my committee, then we write to you, and we lose a lot of time. That is all I wanted to clarify, Mr. Speaker, today. I think it's very important.
Thank you, Senator Cheptumo. I hope now members are well advised that issues on relief should be directed to the Minister of Labor, not security, not the Committee on Security, to the Committee on Labor. That is the Ministry of Labor is now in charge of the food distribution. Majority Leader, make your statement under 57(1).
Mr. Speaker, sugar is a very important cash crop in my county. In fact, after tea, the next big earner in my county is sugarcane. And therefore, I had a small comment on the statement brought by my neighbor.
I'll make your comment. You know, it is Senator Khawale who digressed a lot.
Yeah.
You are forced to cover debate on the sugar issues today.
For sure. But the matter has been ably handled by yourself, Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is a very important matter. But looking at the issues that have been raised by our colleague, Senator Ojienda, I believe his biggest relief or reprieve to the people he represents in this House is for him to walk to the Director Legal, either in Senate or National Assembly, extract a copy of the sugar bill that was developed by the National Assembly, and come and push it in this House. All these issues, we've talked about all these matters for the last 10 years in this House. And it's a shame as leaders, we have not been able to do this. So I want to urge, just like we formed a caucus of last parliament of senators from the tea-growing counties, and we were able to fight together until we came up with a revolutionary act of parliament that increased the earnings of our farmers. There's still a lot to be done. I want to urge you, Senator Tom, that gather us together also as senators representing counties that are have sugarcane growing farmers, and we will work together. I believe there's nothing in this statement that cannot be addressed by that particular bill, because this is a very important industry in our economy, Mr. Speaker. I also want to add just a simple comment that we must as well expedite the process of privatization. The reason why Uganda continues to produce more sugar than us is because 20 years ago, Uganda took the decision to privatize what were then public mills. And since then, they have become extremely profitable. They have a surplus. That's why they feed us. That's why on many occasions when we block sugar from Uganda, within 2 weeks, President Museveni or his Minister for Finance and Trade arrives here in Nairobi, Mr. Speaker. That needs not to be the situation. I believe if we conclude on that exercise, and the task force completed on the exercise, Privatization Commission has done all the studies, we know what the value of the mill and the nucleus across all the 18 publicly owned sugar factories in the country, what the value is. So we need just to take a decision and inform or call the minister to this House to give us the roadmap especially those of us that are interested parties representing farmers that continue to wallow in poverty. I don't agree with the statement made by Senator Ledama that sugar is a poor man's crop. It's not true. That's a statement based on ignorance, Mr. Speaker. I know for a fact that even in my county, farmers that have sugarcane and tea, on many occasions, if they manage, because it's all about the ability to develop your cane well. If you invest well, put the correct amount of fertilizer, irrigate it properly, allow it to mature, you don't use any shortcuts, you have better earnings than even in any other crop, Mr. Speaker. Or you said lazy mans. No, don't call my farmers lazy. They are very hardworking. And even your own farmers I was in Kilgoris 3 weeks ago because I know a lot about this sector because I'm an investor in the sugar industry, Mr. Speaker. And I was in his county. Kilgoris as a town will become a ghost town if he dares encourage his farmers to move away from sugarcane farming. They rely on it 100%. That town revolves because of sugar. Anyway, Mr. Speaker, I look forward to Senator Tom perhaps inviting us and forming a tea caucus or sugarcane caucus of senators that represent this. And all of us, we can sit down and conclude, expedite the bill, and our farmers can enjoy. I move on to this statement, Mr. Speaker. It's a statement by the majority leader that, Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order number 57-1, I present the business of the Senate the week commencing Tuesday, the 22nd of November, 2022. That, Mr. Speaker, sir, on Tuesday, the 22nd of November, 2022, the Senate Business Committee will consider and approve the business for the day. This is projected to contain business that will not be concluded from today's order paper and any other business scheduled by the Senate Business Committee. The order paper for Wednesday, 23rd November, and for Thursday, 24th, will contain business that will not have been concluded in the previous day, respectively, as well as petitions, statements, and any other business scheduled by the SBC. Mr. Speaker, sir, in terms of legislative business, 2 bills are awaiting the second reading stage. These bills are the County Vocational and Training Bill, Senate Bill number 3 of 2022, I think by Senator Moses Kajwang, if I'm not wrong, and the County Government's Additional Allocation Bill, Senate Bill number 4 of 2022. The County Government's Additional Allocation Bill has been scheduled in today's order paper. In view of the need of both houses of parliament to expeditiously consider and pass the bill, preferably before we can break for the long recess and before the House can rest for the Christmas holidays. Because, like I explained, Mr. Speaker, this bill is locking billions, hundreds of billions actually, of donors, funding, and other conditional grants to our counties, Mr. Speaker. And it's really unfortunate because, but I want it to be known in the public domain that as Senate, we have been ready and have done our best. We are actually awaiting a report of reconciliation from our engagement with Treasury. That's the information I got from Senator Ali Roba, the chairman of Budget and Finance Committee. And as of this afternoon, when we resumed our sitting, Treasury was yet to send that particular report. So it's the Treasury actually that is standing on the way. The reason I say that, Mr. Speaker, is because nowadays any governor that I bump into, and those that have access to my phone, those that are known to me personally, the one thing they are calling to ask that we expedite is this particular bill because of how much it's clogging up county resources in terms of development funds. So I want to urge Senator Roba perhaps to still continue pursuing the people from Treasury. If the report comes today in the afternoon, please ensure that you consider it. We shall be here up to 6:30. Who knows, if you're ready and your committee can meet and consider it, we are ready to transact business. We can even do an extension of time because we are here to work, Mr. Speaker. We can conclude on second reading and then maybe await for Tuesday next week, the 22nd, to conclude on the third reading, Mr. Speaker. I urge honorable senators to be available in the House during debate and subsequent divisions, as the bill will require necessary threshold for passing. Of course, to the new senators, they understand the magic number of 24. If we don't have 24 delegations, this bill is not likely to pass. And you would imagine the kind of shame we'd find ourselves into if once the report from the committee is ready, and yet you cannot raise the requisite delegated, or the requisite actually delegations to pass this particular bill. I want to urge senators, I continue to remind people, Mr. Speaker, that the stage and the platform of Parliament is a premium stage. I cannot find any other place where you can speak to the issues that affect the people that sent you to this house. You're being paid very well, actually, to be a member of parliament. I have never understood why on an afternoon like today, you cannot find members of parliament in parliament speaking about issues. These things that you're debating about sugar, about whatever, it's important that your citizens feel part and parcel, because all these things affect us in one way or the other. Mr. Speaker, there are also 3 bills which are undergoing concurrence process contemplated pursuant to Article 110.3. We may soon even be bolding, actually, 110.3. I think it was Deputy Speaker Eunice Gishangi who told me the other day that in her constitution, Article 110.3 is beginning to wane off. Because
are you taking my position and giving to the deputy clerk?
No, no. I was just referring to her. I'm not giving her any instructions.
No.
But I said, if you get a copy of our constitution, Article 110.3 has begun to lose ink because of the number of times she has had to read it. This is at the heart of our operations, and I am happy, Mr. Speaker, that this morning we had a discussion between the Speaker of the Senate, Speaker of the National Assembly, and the team that is working on the concurrence process. It's my sincere most hope that by end of next week we can conclude on that process. The 3 bills, Mr. Speaker, are the number 1, the Parliamentary Powers and Privilege Bill, number 2, Preservation of Human Dignity and Enforcement of Economic and Social Rights Bill. It's a bill of the Senate, number 7 of 2022, and the Natural Resources Benefit Sharing Bill. I want to believe this is the one that was being pushed last time by one of our colleague senators. Very important for senators that come from counties that have natural resources, mining and things like that. Mr. Speaker, with respect to other business of the House, there have been numerous statements sought from the standing committees pursuant to Standing Order number 53.1, and others referred to standing committees pursuant to Standing Order number 52.3. I urge respective committees to expedite the consideration of the business before them and table reports pursuant to the standing order. Mr. Speaker, this is something that we are looking forward to, because each afternoon for the last 3 or 4 weeks, I have seen senators bring before this House their statements. But as is the case, or as is expected actually, there is none that has been tabled, no response yet has been tabled. Many of those matters are still before our committees, and I want to plead with committee chairpersons to push on this particular business, ensure that the statements that are brought by members are considered and the response brought. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I applaud honorable senators who have filed motions and statements on various issues, and those who have taken up bills that lapse by the end of the term of the 12th Parliament. These bills are now being processed and will be scheduled in the order paper after the concurrence process is completed. Again, the issue of Article 110.3. That's why we are pushing so hard to conclude, so that we can move away from this issue of meeting on an afternoon like this and you don't have business to consider. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and hereby lay the statement on the table of the House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Let's proceed to the next order.
Order number 8, the County Government's Additional Allocations number 2 Bill, Senate Bills number 4 of 2022, second reading.
As Chair, Senator Ali Roba.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move the County Government Additional Allocation Bill number 2, and which is Senate Bill number 4 of 2022, be now read a second time. Mr. Speaker, the County Government Additional Allocation Bill number 2, which is Senate Bill number 4 of 2022, was published by Kenya Gazette Notice number 163 of 26th of October 2022, and was introduced in the Senate by way of first reading on Tuesday, 8th of November 2022. Thereafter, the bill stood committed to the Senate Standing Committee of Finance and Budget, pursuant to Standing Orders 145.1 of the Senate Standing Orders. Mr. Speaker, sir, the primary object of this bill is to provide for transfer of conditional and unconditional allocation from the national government share of revenue and Article 202(2) of the Constitution of Kenya, and additional allocation from the proceeds of loans and grants of development partners in line with Article 190 of the Constitution of Kenya for county governments to benefit from this additional allocation in the financial year 2022-2023. Mr. Speaker, we've since progressed very well as committee, and we've had stakeholder engagements comprising of written submissions via publication in Daily Nation newspaper on Wednesday, 9th of November 2022, inviting members of the public and other stakeholders to present their memoranda to the committee on the bill. And that has happened, Mr. Speaker, sir. The committee also sent invitation to other stakeholders.
He is moving the motion. Is it point of order on the motion that he is moving? You will have time to contribute. You will have time to contribute either to support or not to support. Proceed, Chairman. Proceed, Senator Liroba. What is it? Which is standing order? Which number?
Which reads? Which reads?
Just a minute, Senator Liroba.
The party leader is smiling. He should know what is coming is not a smiling matter. Mr. Speaker, understanding 148, in neatness and order of the House, I've heard my brother, Senator Robert, moving the motion. But as he moves the motion, his committee has not given us a report, so that we are aware, because he's telling us it was advertised in Daily Nation, there was stakeholder. I wish, Mr. Speaker, the report on this matter would have come up so that we are able to follow what is moving, Mr. Speaker, because it is a matter that was considered by the committee as per the Standing Order 148. So I know he has 30 calendar days. But at this point, Mr. Speaker, can at least either he tells us he will table the report later and he finishes moving, or what do we do, Mr. Speaker? That's the clarification I was.
Thank you, Senator Samson. You know you have interrupted him. Where I see it, I know you'll mention about the issue you are listening. So don't interrupt him. Now listen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for protecting me. And I was coming to share the same in subsequent discussion. This is just as a matter of critical importance because of the level of importance that this bill holds. I thought that giving a little bit of flesh and background on the bill is extremely critical. We have engaged critical stakeholders and various inputs have been brought to light. Mr. Speaker, sir, as shared previously by Majority Leader, the stakeholders, what the stakeholders have shared with us and what is published in the bill has shared some variance. And subsequently, we've called National Treasury to be able to expound on the same. National Treasury has promised to respond to us by end of day yesterday. That has not happened. That is why we have not had the report ready, and we shall table the report upon receipt of the inputs that are required from National Treasury for tabling, and subsequently carry out the necessary amendments for purpose of reconciling the numbers between what is contained in the bill as well as what has been shared from external stakeholders. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move and request my brother, Senator Khalwale, to second. Thank you very much.
Senator BONY KHALWALE.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to second this motion and would like to add my voice to the fact that whereas Senator CHERARGEI is perfectly right, but we are doing this in the interest of fast tracking. Mr. Speaker, this bill, Mr. Speaker, this bill is a vehicle to transfer additional funds to our counties. Funds that came due as a result of grants and loans from development partners in accordance with our Constitution, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this being the case, we would like to appeal to the House to be patient and know that once the National Treasury releases her thoughts to us, then at the appropriate time, and the time is there, we can do it in third reading, we will make the necessary adjustments so as to beat any further delay and be able to succeed. Mr. Speaker, the reason why we are fast-tracking this, it is because the equalization fund, which in the old bill was being carried along with the additional allocations, served as a speed governor, Mr. Speaker. A speed governor to the extent that the court had made a determination and the court had advised that until the government formed a board for the equalization fund, the money could not be spent. Secondly, it is not entirely agreed who are the counties that should be the beneficiaries for the equalization fund. There are those people who believe that the counties to benefit are strictly the counties that suffered under sessional paper number 10 of 1965. Mr. Speaker, that denied Mandera, Marsabit, Wajir, and Garissa, together with Turkana, access to development funds because of poor policy. So because the Constitution corrected this, Mr. Speaker, and the application of the equalization fund is being...
What is
I
your
can't
point of
concentrate.
order? Senator Moment.
Nimemsikia ndugu yangu Dr. Khalwale akisema kwamba zile county ambazo ziko marginalized hazijakubalika. Mheshimiwa Spika, swala la awamu ya pili ya county ambazo zimetajwa kuwa marginalized ni swala ambalo lililetwa hapa katika hili bunge katika muhula uliokwisha, na county ambazo ziliongezeka nafikiri zilitoka 14 mpaka 32 ama 34 ambazo sasa zinatambulika kama marginalized county. Kwa Mheshimiwa Spika, Senator Khalwale analipoteza bunge hili anaposema kwamba county ambazo ziko marginalized ama zimetengwa hazijakubalika, kwa sababu swala hili liletwa katika bunge hili muhula uliopita na likapitishwa kwamba county ambazo ziko marginalized ni 34 na sio 14 ambazo zilikuwa kwenye awali. Kwa Mheshimiwa Spika, ingefaa rekebishe swala hilo.
Senator Boni, nikiongeza kidogo sababu nimekuwa, unajua kile kipindi seneta hakuwa hapa bungeni Senate, lakini nataka kumweleza kwamba siku hizi utaratibu wa marginalization unaenda mpaka kwa kata ndogo. Kata ndogo inakuwa categorized. Kama kata iko Kakamega na ina umaskini, inaweza chukuliwa hiyo location ama kata ndogo na ipewe hela za marginalization. Na wakati Mheshimiwa Khalwale, wakati umeambiwa hoja ya nidhamu, unakaa kwa kiti, unangoje kuwa umeketi, alafu kimaliziwa unaamka. Huo ndio utaratibu wa bunge hili. Endelea.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I was standing because you are not on your feet. Otherwise, I would have sat down immediately. Mr. Speaker, sir, I appreciate what you're saying. I really do. But I was speaking to the letter and spirit of the Constitution 2010. It was meant for a short period of only 20 years. It was meant to right a wrong against Kenyans who live in those areas that I've tabulated. But that there has been further wisdom, and this has been expanded to include areas that are marginalized. Mr. Speaker, it is going to call upon this House to reflect on this matter very seriously, Mr. Speaker, because at the end of the day, we might as well call the entire country as being marginalized. Mr. Speaker, sir,